And today I have Craig Emery from CJC Consulting. I can see you bought the banner home, Craig. So
Of
welcome to
course.
the call, Craig.
No, thank you, David. Thank you for having me on this session.
Yeah, no problem. Look, you're a virtual CFO, and I think everyone would love a virtual CFO right now
hmm
because the money situation in the country, and I'd say the world, is like shifting sands. It's changed dramatically, and there's sort of people like deers in the headlights. So maybe if we talk about how you're handling this situation first, and then we can talk about some of the advice you'd be giving to the business owners out there. So you run your own business. You're working from home now, I gather, unless that's a really funky office.
No.
Tell us a bit about how you've sort of navigated this situation. What have you done?
Yeah. So, I mean, it goes without saying that it's a very unique situation that nobody could have foreseen coming. And, as part of my role within businesses is to provide some level of forecasting and planning ahead. And
Yeah.
if anybody says that they plan for this to happen, they are either, that's some top level forecasting they're doing there, or they are, completely off the head. So,
Yeah.
what we've found at the moment is, from my perspective, from CJC's view, is we're having to do what a lot of businesses are doing now, and that is just to be there as a source of advice and a source of information, rather than looking to, obviously provide services that we do, but we know that the market and the climate is completely and utterly different than what it was 2 weeks ago, and never mind 4 weeks ago.
Right.
So it's interesting now that we are reaching out to clients, we are speaking to clients as we always have done, but it's on a different level. It's a different level of kind of providing that support, rather than insisting that this is what you need right now, because people are still so unsure about what it is that actually is going to happen for them.
I think one of the most challenging things that people are faced with right now is there's no end date. And doing any sort of forecasting or any sort of planning with no end date is like having a GPS and not putting a destination in it, and demanding whether I turn left or right at the end of the street.
Yeah, definitely.
How do you suggest like a business owner sort of addresses or attacks this current situation, because it is so unique?
Oh, it is, without a doubt. So the one thing I would say to any business owner is, don't put your head in the sand and think that this is just going to go away and it's just going to, wake up tomorrow, it's all going to be over. The point you make about there being no end date is very relevant, but it's also a great opportunity for business owners to, get their finances or their understanding of their businesses in order. Now, I know you've spoken to many other people on these calls, and I've spoken to yourself previously about this, and the importance of businesses understanding their numbers is key. And it can be told time and time again, but unfortunately, it's not always the way that businesses address that and actually find out how important it is, until we hit these points now, when suddenly those businesses that have had the ability to know where they are financially are probably going to be the ones that, I'm not saying they're going to survive this, but they're going to be the ones who are going to be in a better position. So the key thing, more than anything else, with the exclusion of any end date, is ultimately just for businesses to get all their facts together as best they can. Whether it's in relation to their situation with the ATO, and situation that they're obviously spoken to their accountants and bookkeepers about, which really have had my sympathy the last couple of weeks, because everybody is expecting to get X amount back from the government, and that isn't going to be the case. So a lot of people will be planning on these elements coming in that won't be there. But look at your cost structures of your business. Look at your wages. Look at who your customers are. It's the only opportunity to go through these things and give yourself, whether you call it a spring clean or just a perspective of where your business sits, because when you do come out of this, there's going to be a lot of people that have had their relationships improved just by communication with their customers and their suppliers.
Yes.
And there's probably going to be a lot of businesses as well that are going to have they've had their relationships strained. So before anything, it's just getting that facts together, and then just ultimately looking where you want to go, and don't take your eye off the bigger picture.
Great. I mean, it's an interesting metaphor right now. We're in a world game, and it's ironic that we're measuring the number of deaths And now they've moved it to per million so that we can compare countries.
Yep.
And it's a tragic thing that we're doing, but it's also very compelling for people to say, how are we tracking as a country? And this whole thing about stage 3 and whether we go to stage 4 is all based on numbers.
Yep.
And the numbers they're using is number of deaths and number of cases, which is like financials in a way, saying, well, we're going to put a strategy in place and then we're going to see what happens. And so for those people who haven't used numbers to drive their business before, they're sort of suffering from this, I don't know what's working, what's not working type scenario. This is a really interesting time because for the typical business owner right now, they've actually got time on their hands.
Yep.
They actually can go back to what they should have been doing anyway, which is doing cash flow projections and budgets. We've got a fair idea that by June 30, things will start to be clearer.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be some sort of regulation in the market. I don't think we're going to spring back. I think they're going to slowly release. They might say, okay, as of tomorrow, you can have 2 people in a group instead of 3, instead of 1, and we'll test that for 2 weeks. But they'll use their KPIs to determine whether it's working or not. So the irony of this whole thing is that the world is using KPIs to monitor this corona thing. And it's exactly the same in a small business where we're saying, well, the game has changed and we know that, but there's key KPIs and one of them's cash and the other one is proposals and the other one is number of contacts in our database. So we can monitor and we can make these adjustments while working from home or working in a different environment if we're aware of the figures.
Yes,
so
definitely.
I think when you come in as a CFO and you say, look, my job is to help you understand the figures and use them to make better decisions, I think that's an abstract thought to a lot of people. And they say, yeah, but I'm not making enough to warrant having that information. And it's sort of like a catch-22, isn't it? It's with having that information, you could probably make better decisions and make more money. And they say, well, when we're making more money, then we'll get you to engage. And it's
yes, and you're right. It's very true. And you're ultimately saying, well, unless you get me in there, or as better another CFO, then you're not going to get there anyway. And I've seen the topic come up quite a few times in relation now to companies just completely and utterly cutting expenditure in areas that they see as low-lying fruit in relation to save a few dollars here and there.
Yeah.
And again, that is completely understandable, but it's also a bit of a panic that people have gone through.
Yeah.
And the point I made earlier on about businesses having to keep in the back of the mind the bigger picture is, just be careful what you do now, because it could, ultimately keep you going for the next couple of weeks, but is it really going to jeopardize your future? So, it's all this expenditure, shall we say, around marketing, about employing a virtual CFO, about employing business coaching is, I'm just not going to need it right now. So let's park that and I'll come back to that at a later date. When actually it's this point now where you probably need that support, or potentially need that support very, very soon, more than ever before. I know there's a bit of a running joke when you talk about marketing and accountants just go, right, cut it. That's just another waste of time. But, it's not necessarily the case. You need to plan these things through. So that planned expenditure that you may have on your social media marketing or a new product launch, you may well have to slow it down, but don't completely and utterly throw it out with the bathwater because you think it's the right thing to do. Look at what it is that you were hoping to get from it and see if you can actually still gain some of that traction before you just make these radical, broad brush approaches where, you may feel better about it for a while because, okay, I'm not spending anything. But you're right, those businesses that will spring out of it, and some will, are going to be the ones that have still kept an eye on those areas. They may well not be spending the same levels, but they will still be invested in their business. And it's, having that advice and having that information in front of you that will actually make a big difference to businesses and business owners.
I'd take it a step further than that, Craig, and I'd suggest that some people should be spending more money on their marketing right now. But without the metrics, without the measurement, it becomes sort of like having no end date on this lockdown. The metrics need to be, if I'm spending money on marketing, am I getting progression in the market? Now, some people aren't spending money right now, and that's really part of the hysteria and the acceptance phase of what's going on. But there is going to be a point where business will move forward. People will continue to spend, and we need to be planning in advance for that. So maybe some of the metrics that they should be measuring is more database building, relationship building, proposals in the pipeline, qualified prospects, as opposed to cash. And investing in that stuff now would actually set up a business to come out the gates flying.
Oh, without a doubt. And you know, it's a pretty common thing that sometimes when people see figures that they don't like or don't know, there's an element of fear around it to say, well, you know, I'll just completely and utterly, you know, turn away, and if it's not there, I don't see it, so it's not real. So you know, you talk about marketing as well. You know, there might have been people and businesses that have been launching a new product line or a new service 4 weeks ago, and they could have spent thousands of dollars on it, and it might not have worked. However, you know, they would have still needed to track that through, and it might have been for whatever reason. It's not for the, you know, the COVID-19 situation. It's just the fact that it was not going to work anyway. However, they still would have needed to track it through. And you're right, what you're saying. That's, you know, people shouldn't keep an eye. They should keep an eye on what it is that they actually want out of their business. And getting that support and services behind you now will allow you to actually get there, you know, and navigate through what is, you know, very uncertain and uncharted waters.
So let's start wrapping up. If you had one piece of advice, if you were my CFO right now, what would be the main piece of advice you'd be giving me specifically to do?
It's ultimately just to keep your eye on all the facts in relation to your business. So, you know, I understand that your business would work to a certain extent as your CFO. So the general view is, you know, just don't panic. It's more than anything else. And it's to ultimately look at a few criteria. That's what's really key for your business. So what is it that you have to keep doing, no matter what it is, and what's the financial and particularly the cash flow implications around that. And then look at a few scenarios. So say if, you know, scenario A doesn't work, what does scenario B look like? And then what does scenario C look like? Because as you say, every single week at the moment, and you're probably right, they're going to slow down and hopefully come back to some normality right now, is making it very difficult for businesses to understand where they are. And definitely, as your CFO, I'll be saying to you now, you've got to look at the minimum of 3 to 6 months ahead. And I know it's hard, but ultimately you've got to start. You can't do this week by week. You need to know those figures, but you've got to have the bigger picture because you've got to know where you're going to be when this doesn't twist around.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, Craig, look, thanks very much for your time. I want to keep these short and sharp. I appreciate your input. I'm hoping some people get some takeaways from that, and we'll look forward to catching again. So thanks, Craig.
No problem, Dave. Thank you.